In this video, we're going to be doing a detailed breakdown of this weekend's fight between Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. Now, I've identified some key details in this fight that I think are going to have a massive impact on which way it goes. This is going to be a long one, so make yourselves comfortable, get yourselves a drink, and at the end of the video, I'm going to give my final prediction, and it is going to be my final prediction. So let me know if you agree, and if you disagree in the comments, let me know why. We'll get into a discussion. Everyone can give their opinion, which I'm sure they will anyway. So if we start by talking about the fight itself, I think it has to be agreed that this is the fight of the year. I know you can say Pereira's been a huge superstar, but really in terms of level of opposition, Max Holloway, who's a huge superstar, even more so after UFC 300, that Justin Gaethje performance, we're going to really get into that. And then on the other side, you have Ilia Topuria. He's just been a wrecking ball since he came in the UFC. Knockouts, submissions, an absolute beast. And this fight has come at the perfect time. They talk about this in fighting all the time. You can have the best athletes in the world, but if the timing's not right, it just doesn't work. However, here, I truly believe we've got two fighters in their absolute prime, meeting at the best possible time. Had it been even one fight ago for Max Holloway, people might have said he doesn't really deserve the shot, the 3 Volkanovski losses. But after that performance against Gaethje, he made himself undeniable. He chose to go down to featherweight, take on Ilia Topuria for his old title. And Ilia Topuria has the opportunity to have back-to-back fights, back-to-back wins against Alexander Volkanovski, the greatest featherweight of all time, arguably, and Max Holloway, who's in that conversation as well. I think it's fair to say that those two could be the best possible back-to-back fights in recent history. I know, again, there's going to be some people disagreeing with that. And then we look at what's at stake. For Max Holloway, I think that losing this fight would bring the end of his featherweight campaign. I think that we saw what he could do at lightweight. When he gave himself the real time to bulk up, his power carried up as we saw. You know, we're going to talk about that Justin Gaethje fight a lot, but it was just incredible. You could see his power carried up the weight class when he did it properly. But if he loses to Ilia Topuria now, that's 4 title losses in recent history, 3 against Volkanovski and 1 here. I think it would be hard to argue that his time at featherweight, could really continue. It'd be a long way back to the top for him. Again, he's such a superstar that he will get opportunities that other fighters don't get. But I think it would be just really hard to justify another title shot anytime soon. So I think that his options would be BMF defences or a lightweight campaign. For Ilia Topuria, when you ask what's at stake, even though this is his first title defence, there's an element of legacy here for him. If he can get back-to-back victories on Volkanovski and Holloway, like we just mentioned, their resumes in the featherweight division, he's already building a legacy. It's crazy to say, it's still such early days. The guy's only 27, but there's so much at stake in this fight. They're two absolute warriors who are going to clash in the middle of the octagon. And look, let's get into this breakdown. I'm getting myself excited about this fight already. I genuinely cannot wait for it. So let's get into the breakdown. The first thing that I want to talk about is a potential flaw in Ilia Topuria. This is going to give Max fans a lot of faith, a lot of hope. Look, this hasn't been easy. For a fighter who is so technically sound like Ilia Topuria, picking out holes in his game is easier said than done. But there's a few things that I have identified that Max Holloway can potentially capitalise on. So let's take a look at it now. The first thing is to do with his guard. Now, Ilia Topuria's boxing is exceptional. So many elements of his game is exceptional. He can hit so hard. His head movement's really nice. He puts his punches together well. He's got one of the best body shots in the UFC. However, one concern that I do have with him relates to his discipline when it comes to his guard. So first, I want to take a look at Ilia Topuria's guard. This is 30 seconds into his title fight against Volkanovski, and you can see that he's got a really nice high guard. His stance is well balanced between his feet, and he looks like a very defensively responsible fighter here. However, just over 3 minutes later, that guard has completely come down. In fact, if you compare Volkanovski there with Topuria, Volkanovski's left hand from the orthodox position is in a really nice place, protecting himself. He's got his shoulder up, whereas Topuria he is very open there. And look, this is personal preference. Some fighters start with their hands down and it works for them. But for the fact that he started with his hands up in this style suggests to me that he's been training this style. You know, this was part of the game plan, because generally the way you see a fighter come out at the start of the fight, the kind of shots they throw, that has been drilled in beforehand. It's over the course of the fight that you might adapt and do things differently. But as you can see, as the first round went on, as his guard does come down, that's a great sign for someone like Max Holloway, who really depends heavily on punch volume and cardio, knowing that his opponent potentially will become more vulnerable as the fight goes on because of their guard coming down. That's a great thing for Holloway to identify. Now, moving on to this clip, and I'm doing it frame by frame, so hopefully we don't get any kind of strikes against it for this clip. But as you can see here, this is a prime example of what we're talking about. Both the fighters throw the same overhand right. Jai Herbert's a little bit quicker with it, but his fist seems to skim off Topuria's forehead. Topuria actually catches Jai Herbert with a really nice shot there. However, this is just pure instinct by Jai Herbert. After taking this shot, his instant reaction is to lift up that left leg because he guesses that Ilia Topuria's right hand isn't going to come back in time and he's going to be able to land that head kick. And as you can see, it does just that. Rather than coming back to his chin, Topuria's right hand comes to his hip. And this is what Jai Herbert was banking on. And as you can see, it leaves his chin completely exposed. Jai Herbert lands a huge head kick on him, which does drop him. It's amazing that he was able to recover and eventually win the fight by stopping Jai Herbert. But that's just the kind of fighter we are talking about. But as I said, the guard coming lower throughout the course of a round should be a slight concern for Topuria and his team, especially against a dynamic striker like Max Holloway. Someone who throws shots from weird angles and who is primarily a headhunter. Topuria needs to be really disciplined here. Max Holloway does have very underrated kicks, so don't be surprised if you see something similar on Saturday night. Look, Topuria strikes me as that fighter who is constantly growing, evolving, and not likely to make the same mistakes over and over again. But Holloway is the taller fighter again. He can easily whip that leg over the top. In the second fight between him and Volkanovski, he dropped Volkanovski, momentarily stunned him with a head kick. So that is really potentially on. There's another kick that I do want to look at for Max Holloway. In the fight against Justin Gaethje, as we can see here, it was this kick. As Gaethje was rushing in, Holloway lands a spinning back kick. Now, normally this kick targets the abdomen and it's very damaging. You can just imagine how much power you can generate with the spinning back kick. However, Justin Gaethje has this habit where he does dip, he really drops into stuff, and he was rushing forward, dropping his level, had his head down, and he walked straight into this spinning back kick, and it broke his nose. And ultimately, it was one of the factors that led to Holloway just dominating in this fight. You could tell that Gaethje was bothered by it. Now, Ilia Topuria is a technically better boxer than Justin Gaethje. However, he also, as you can see in this picture against Volkanovski, he's also happy to drop his levels as well. And when you combine the fact that he's such an aggressive fighter and he likes to target the body, this opens up the possibility of Max's spinning back kick doing real damage. I know that Topuria will have prepared for this. He won't go rushing in because he knows no matter how small or large the distance, Max Holloway can get this kick off. It's so nice. As you can see in this picture, we'll go back to the picture with Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's so close to him. Max's leg is nowhere near extended, but he's able just to turn his hips around and get off at a really powerful kick. This is a real potential opening for Max Holloway. Because Topuria will be on the front foot at times, he'll be moving forward, he gets a bit reckless with his striking sometimes, and it gives Max a huge opportunity to do some real damage. And if he doesn't land it flushly on the nose like he did against Justin Gaethje, even if he lands on the body, it will do significant damage. It really is a testament to just how good Ilia Topuria's performances have been, that we've only got a couple of examples of weaknesses, of times of him getting caught that we can use. But even so, there are times that he got caught where potential weaknesses have been shown. So if Max does get his kicks together, gets the timing on Ilia Topuria, he could see a lot of success here. But anyway, let's look at the other side of things. Let's take a look at Ilia Topuria's kicks, because I think they're going to play a massive factor. In fact, I think they could be the factor that determine how this fight goes. Ilia Topuria's calf kicks are very, very hard and very, very fast. In the first round against Volkanovski, Volk was forced to switch stance. Now you've got to remember, this is the same Volkanovski that was chewing up Max Holloway's legs in those 3 fights. So you probably know where I'm going to go with this. Max Holloway is heavy on that lead leg, particularly when he's against a shorter fighter. Against Justin Gaethje, who's a bigger guy, you could see Holloway circling around more. It was a very different kind of game plan. Now, this is the thing when you're fighting someone who's taller or shorter than you. A lot of guys like fighting smaller people because it's likely that you'll have a reach advantage and that you can control distance better with your legs, with your hands. On the other hand, some people prefer fighting taller people because it's more likely that their chin's going to be in the air, they're going to be standing taller, there's more access to their legs. So really it's personal preference here. But we can only go off what we've seen previously. And whilst Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski are very different fighters, they're actually extremely different fighters, their dimensions are quite similar. And we saw how much Max struggled with the calf kicks from Volkanovski. I think it's going to be a similar story here. Because Topuria is shorter, Max will have to bend his legs slightly. That's just so that he's more in range. He doesn't have to punch down so much. Better takedown defense. There's a lot of reasons why he'll want to be on a similar level to his opponent. But there is a price to pay for that. By bending your legs, you do become slower because your legs get heavier. You're putting more weight through your legs. It's not as easy to get in and out. And it's a lot easier for your opponent to catch you with those calf kicks. Because Topuria's calf kicks are so powerful, I could actually potentially see Holloway being stopped by calf kicks. I know that might sound crazy to some people because Holloway's so tough. We saw how many calf kicks he ate against Volkanovski. But having seen Volkanovski against Topuria, Topuria seems to have the more powerful calf kicks. This would be one of the best predictions of all time if Holloway does get stopped by calf kicks. And I'm not saying it's my prediction yet, so you do need to wait around to the end of the video to see that. But there's real potential here. If Max is really heavy on his legs, if he's not quick, because Topuria anyway is going to be quicker than him, and if Topuria can just catch him with that calf kick, it could be disastrous for Max. He will switch stance, he's good out of both stances, but even so, Topuria would just start chopping the other leg. I really think that calf kicks could be the factor that determines which way this fight goes. If Holloway can deal with them, if he can check them early, get out the way and get back in range, then you know what? He might be able to nullify one of Topuria's best weapons. However, if Topuria can land it time and time again, which he has shown to do previously, it could be a real bad night for Holloway. When it comes to speed, I think it's pretty cut and dry here. We don't need to go into loads of detail about who's quicker. I think it's clear that Ilia Topuria is the faster fighter. He might not throw as many shots. He doesn't throw as many shots. He's a lot more selective in his shot selection, if that makes sense, selective in his shot selection. But he is quicker. Max Holloway, his speed kind of got exposed against Volkanovski in the third fight. That third fight, Volkanovski was, I believe he was unbeatable that night. But he was able to be first and third with all these combinations against Max Holloway. He could get his shots off, get out the way. Max Holloway would swing and miss a lot of the time, which he did in that fight. And Volkanovski could get back in, finish his combination, and then circle off. It was elite by Volkanovski that night. But speed and precision was so important there. Max Holloway is a good boxer. There's a debate whether he's the best boxer in the UFC. That could get settled on Saturday night. But he's not the quickest boxer by any stretch. Ilia Topuria is quicker. He's going to have the advantage when it comes to speed. But it's up to Max Holloway to nullify Topuria's speed. And the way in which I think he's going to do this is by pressure fighting. However, this could also lead to his undoing. Let's take a look at this. It's no secret that Max Holloway does get hit a lot. I'm not even really going to pick out individual fights here because in every fight, even fights that he dominates, like the Calvin Kattar fight, okay, I just picked out a specific fight. I can't help myself sometimes. Even the Calvin Kattar fight, where he was flexing to Daniel Cormier, I'm the best boxer in the UFC, he was still getting hit by some massive shots. The Volkanovski fights, I'm only going to refer to that because it's up on the screen now. He got caught with some bombs. He's got an amazing chin, but he gets hit so many times. And other than potentially Justin Gaethje, who just couldn't really get near Max apart from the time that he dropped him, as you can see here, no one has been able to crack that chin yet. However, if one person can crack that chin, it's going to be Ilia Topuria. But anyway, talking about the volume punching of Max Holloway and the pressure that he's going to put on Ilia Topuria, I actually think this is a very good tactic because Topuria is great at moving forward. You saw it against Volkanovski. Volkanovski was circling out and Topuria was just marching him down, knowing that once he got his range, he could unload some bombs. So it's understandable that Max Holloway wouldn't take the same approach that he took against Justin Gaethje, where he was circling off. His movement was actually very similar to Volkanovski's in round 1 in his fight against Topuria. There are a lot of similarities there. But Max Holloway shouldn't do this against Topuria. The last place you want to be is with your back on the fence, with Topuria raining shots down on you. He is just so powerful. His boxing's so good. If it's to the body, if it's to the head, you just don't want to be there. So Max should definitely put him on his back foot. But even saying that, you need to be really careful because Topuria on the back foot is still a very dangerous fighter. He is a modern breed of MMA fighter. He's not just this guy who can only be the hammer, he can never be the nail. If he gets backed up, his striking is still so good that it can completely turn the tide of a fight. Take a look at this clip. We're 2 minutes into round number 2, Volkanovski against Topuria. Volkanovski throws a left hand. Topuria, really nice boxing head movement, slips it. But Volkanovski then throws the double jab, which connects. Now, Volkanovski's got so much disrespect after this knockout loss. People forget just how good he was. The fight was pretty competitive up until the finish. So yeah, Volkanovski lands a nice jab there. And as you can see, he's probably looking for like a long left hook afterwards or something like that. But his right hand is just so low. And you can see Topuria's body, his hips, everything's locked and loaded, ready to unload a big shot on Volkanovski. Volkanovski, fortunately for him, had the wherewithal just to get his head out of the way slightly, so it did connect, but it wasn't as devastating as it could have been. But you can just see, and look at how Topuria finishes here. This is the final thing that I want to mention about Topuria's boxing. When he throws, he doesn't throw arm punches. Max Holloway's a volume fighter, and that does have benefits when it comes to cardio. Max Holloway just doesn't get tired, but a lot of his punches are arm punches. He's not putting his whole body into it. The same cannot be said about Ilia Topuria. He puts everything into his punches. He turns his body all the way through them, and he hits you to try and get you out of there. Now, Max Holloway has this legendary chin. However, if he's not responsible defensively, he comes in and he's lazy bringing his hands back, because Max Holloway is going to be coming in throwing 3, 4, 5, 6 punch combinations against Topuria, and if he isn't bringing his hands back to his chin, Topuria will catch him. Now, if Max Holloway's reckless and he does rush in and he doesn't get his hands back to his chin, I can see him eating one of these shots. And this shot, if it had landed flush, it definitely would have put Volkanovski down. Like I said, he was able to just get his head out of the way to not take the worst of it. But Max could definitely get caught with a shot like this. Or a big overhand right, because he does keep his chin so high. So I'm worried about him when it does come to the power and the speed of Topuria's boxing. And whilst I do believe that Max Holloway is one of the better boxers in the UFC, despite the damage he takes, I just don't think Max Holloway can afford to take too many clean punches from Ilia Topuria, despite how good his chin has been in the past. And this is the thing that worries me about Max Holloway. I do think he is one of the better boxers that's been in the UFC, but it's his lack of discipline is the reason why Max Holloway has the most strikes absorbed in the UFC. Technically, he's so good, but he does get reckless. He invites it, he points in the middle of the ring and just goes for it. But that's just such a bad idea against someone who is so clinical like Ilia Topuria. I know Topuria's challenged him, stand in the middle of the ring with me in the first 10 seconds. I think that's a terrible idea for Max Holloway. But anyway, what have we been through so far? Look at my notes. We've had a look at Ilia's potential weaknesses with Max Holloway's kicks. The flip side of that is the calf kick, which Ilia Topuria will be using against Max Holloway, because Max is going to have to be heavy on that front leg because Ilia is the shorter fighter. We've taken a look at Max's boxing, the pressure that he's going to put on, getting Ilia on the back foot, but at the same time being wary of what's coming back his way. Ilia will have the speed advantage, but it's up to Max to make speed not a factor in this fight. I don't think takedowns are going to play much of a part. I could see Ilia Topuria shooting later on in the fight potentially, especially if Max is up on the scorecards. But really, I think this is going to be a largely stand-up affair. So I think I'm ready to go ahead with my prediction. And I did say before, I think Ilia Topuria by decision. I'm really tempted to stick by that, but I'm going to put my neck on the line. I'm going to go for Ilia Topuria. Final round, 4th or 5th round. I think he's going to stop Max Holloway, calf kicks, and then it could be a TKO if he just can't get back up. Or it might be calf kicks to the point where the referee steps in. I think he's going to really damage his leg. I think Max is going to have to be heavy on it. I think Ilia's going to make the most of that. Look, I said before at the start of this video, I've not seen anyone with a take like this yet. No one's probably going to agree with this. You're probably going to go after me in the comments, but I can see it happening. Let me know what you think. Try be nice, and I'll see you guys later.